All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Tuesday conference call. Matt Ham here, co-founder of Uprint Faith and Personal Development, working directly with the team at Red Earth Sales and Marketing. I appreciate you who are jumping on live here. We've got the live call. We're doing the recording here. So I'm got multiple camera angles. It's like the Tonight Show. You know, have the different cameras, right? You got to train yourself to get used to this. But today, I'm really excited because we're going to go through something that we developed last year, and it is a vision casting and goal-setting workshop. We did this at a faith and business event kind of the end of last year. And I'll tell you what, it was phenomenal, just how it was received. And it can go on for like 4 hours. Like I'll do this seminar for businesses, come in and actually work with the team very intimately. So I'm kind of giving you guys some highlights today and would encourage you to spend some time with it. And reason why I'm doing this is because, you know, if we cast a vision in January, right, as most people do, new year, new you, cast a vision, all of a sudden, what happened to our visions and our goals this year, right? There was a giant stick of dynamite that was placed in the middle of them, and it just went. And so it's so easy when you have an event, a life event, that throws your goals off track to just throw in the towel. I'll get, whatever. I'm done. I'll give up. Maybe next year kind of thing. And it's like somebody who's trying to lose a bunch of weight and, all of a sudden they have a tragedy in their life. And of course, they maybe they lose a loved one and people are bringing them desserts and food all the time. And they get off track from what it is that they intended to do. And I want to tell you guys and very specifically look directly at you on camera and say, don't do it. And to those on the call, don't do it. Right now, if anything, hit the reset button, recalibrate your goals, recast your vision, and let's get on with it now. Because we've already had January, February, March, April, May. We've had 5 months of the year go by. There's more than half a year left. And it is a great opportunity and time for us to kick our own selves in the fanny, get ourselves refocused, and get back on the horse and figure out which direction we're going. So I'm getting a little bit of, I'm going to be like a coach today. I'm not getting on the team because I love you guys, but I'm coming to you from a little bit of my own personal position as well, because we had goals this year. I had traveling schedules set up. I was going to travel and speak in a couple places. I was supposed to do some corporate workshops with some teams, all that stuff. But what's cool is it gives you the opportunity to shift and pivot and adjust and recalibrate and continue moving in a good direction. Because the tendency, and I'll tell you this, for me, has been to say, oh, well, not a whole lot I can do. I get income by going and speaking in organizations and whatnot, and if that's gone away, well, that's just gone away. You've got to be able to adapt. And today I'm going to bring in a lot of my own personal faith in this because this is how this works for me. Don't suppose where you guys are with your own faith. It's not about that. I'm using this as an example for me that has worked in the past. And so inviting you into that process as well is kind of how I start to navigate through this. So that being said, faith to me is everything when it comes to vision casting and goal setting. Because if you don't have faith, why would you even set goals and cast a vision in the first place? There has to be something underneath a vision that sustains it. And that is the idea of faith. It's this concept that if we are faithful to carry out kind of the steps along the way, that the end product it will take care of itself and begin to come to fruition. So one of the really neat things that we start off with here is what we call a vision kind of setting here. Now I'm working on a twofold dynamic. I've got the call folks here, so you can't see this PowerPoint, but I'm going to send it to you afterwards so you'll have it. And then for those who are catching the replay on this, you can see the PowerPoint because I've got it embedded in the screen, okay? So I'm going to walk through those with you on the call with this. And what I have at the top of the PowerPoint is the word provision. But I have it separated out, the word pro, and then in parentheses, vision. So pro, in parentheses, vision. And why I do it separated out that way is because it gives you a great visual of what I actually mean here. And the reality is, we teach it this way: you cannot have provision without vision. Literally, provision requires the word vision. But in our lives as well, our provision in our lives requires that we have some type of vision. You see, I think a lot of people say, when I get provision, then I can cast a vision. When I start making money, then I can go and do this. Or when I get enough money, then I can go and do this. And it's actually the opposite. The vision comes ahead of the provision. And I'm not suggesting that you can't make money without a vision. You certainly can. But I'm talking about when you incorporate a holistic viewpoint and approach to your life, you have to cast a vision first, and the provision will follow. You have to have an idea in your head, I'm going to go cut grass, before you actually get paid for cutting grass. So a vision always precedes provision. And we often think of it the opposite way around. It's, when I start doing this or when I start doing that, then I can actually have a vision, but we have to have a vision first. Now, where this comes from in Scripture is the book of Proverbs 29:18, where there is no prophetic vision, the people cast off restraint, but blessed is he who keeps the law. That's the full verse. A lot of people say, without a vision, the people perish. Without a vision, the people perish. And so it's important that we have a vision. We have an idea of where we're going. We have to understand what that looks like before we can actually go there. I've used it like this, and I've talked about this before on these calls, is if you are going to California in your car, you have to cast a vision of, there is a California. I am headed in that direction, right? I see this. I know this. I've kind of mapped out the vision of where I want to go. I have faith that that place actually exists. And now I get busy moving along the road in my car. But what I have to do along the way is fill my car up with gas, and the gas in our own tanks is hope. So I'm using an analogy of going on a road trip and relating it to casting a vision and stepping into goal setting and all this, because it helps us internalize it and begin to feel the vision and actually step into our future. Because if you don't spend time actually thinking about and dreaming about and imagining and visualizing what your life you desire for it to look like, then you're not necessarily attached to the outcome. But, one of the things for me, and I'll use a personal example from my own life, is I have a vision of standing on a stage and actually speaking inside of a stadium, like an arena type setting, being in the middle of a stadium and looking out and there being 20, 30, 40,000 people there and speaking in that environment. So one of the things that I do is I actually close my eyes and I meditate on what that actually would look like. And I feel it and I go there, because that's what keeps me motivated on the Tuesday afternoon when I'm discouraged and whatnot. I have to remember what it is that the vision, what the vision is, so I can begin to step into it. So start casting a vision for your life, and close your eyes and kind of go there. The concept here is that ideas come before things. Okay, I've got a little red cup right here. Okay, a little red Solo cup. I think. Yep, John's got some of these cups in here. We get water in them. This cup was an idea before it ever became a cup. This microphone was an idea before it ever became a physical microphone. You see what I'm getting at here? There's this envisioning stage for everything that is created where it's an idea first. If you don't even have an idea about where you're going, who you are, what your goals, dreams, visions, desires are for your life, then you can't possibly step into it, because it requires that the idea comes first. All right? And so one of the things that we find often that people do is they unfortunately focus on negative things. So they have the imagination to go, oh my gosh, this is never going to work, or I can't do this, or what about the money, or what about people, what they say, I don't have the education, etc. So our minds automatically focus on negative outcomes, but faith is the opposite. Faith is training ourselves to focus on what is unseen, specifically the unseen blessing. And so I want to encourage you guys that you have to use your imagination in this process. And if you don't use your imagination in this process, then it will not work, period. You have to begin to use your imagination, and you've got to go there. You know, it literally looks like almost daydreaming, brainstorming, closing your eyes, visualizing it. That process has to happen for a proper vision casting and goal setting thing to begin. Otherwise, it's just like, I think I'll run a marathon. I think I'll sell 25 houses. Man, I'd like to go on a trip to Hawaii. Yeah, those all sound like good things. And whoop, you go on down the path, and none of those things actually happen. Why? Because you didn't take the time to visualize them, feel them, and actually experience them emotionally ahead of it actually happening. And that's a powerful thing that a lot of folks don't quite understand, and they feel it's a little bit weird, but that is part of casting a vision, and then the provision, the means for that to happen, will follow. So moving on now, this is the next slide in this PowerPoint is what we call the Decade Challenge. Now, I want you guys to know this, that 10 years ago, if somebody wanted to get a ride to the airport, what would they do? They would call a taxi, right? A taxi. Well, right now, if somebody wants to get a ride to the airport, what are most people going to do? They're going to pull up their phone, and they're going to punch in something, and a car is going to come pick them up, and it's called Uber. I want you guys to realize this, that Uber did not exist 10 years ago. Uber did not exist 10 years ago. And somebody would have said, that's stupid. Why would I have a device on my phone where I could get a ride from a random stranger? That's just dumb. I'd never do that, right? You see, when you have a vision, people are always going to oppose it. So you have to be prepared in vision casting and goal setting that not everyone's going to agree to it. But true innovation and excellence is always going to eventually determine the narrative instead of the narrative determining it. And I would say early on, the narrative can determine it, because the Uber people, after 2 years of pushback and people going that stupid, they could have given up. But the reality is they changed the atmosphere of how we function because they were willing to step into their vision. Okay? And so be encouraged today that Uber, which didn't exist 10 years ago, is now transforming how we do transportation. And so I want you guys to think about that in your own life. You could be somewhere 10 years from now that you haven't even imagined yet. There could be, and it could be much sooner than that. People go, 10 years, that's so long. So many things can happen in such a short amount of time, but unless you begin to visualize it and see and explore the imagination, you'll never possibly step into it. So we have an exercise here that we call the Decade Challenge, and this is what I encourage folks to do. Write down the last 10 years of your life. Now, I'll be honest, this is not easy. In fact, it's very painful for a lot of people. But if you don't deal with what's happened in your past and realize that it happened not to you, but for you, you'll never grow beyond it. See, so many people are shackled to their past and what didn't happen, so they don't dream. Y'all, come on, I'm getting fired up. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to hit a preach button here, but we need this. Gosh, we need this in our earth right now. So many people are terrified and afraid because of all the crap that's happened in their past. They never step into their future. And they're always a victim of the things that have happened instead of a victor in stepping into what is ahead of them. When you understand that your past is something that happened for you, and it's created you and made you into who you are, and it's given you experiences that will empower you to step into the future and begin to craft the future that you desire instead of reacting to a past that you couldn't control. This is powerful. And this Decade Challenge is really an incredible process. So I'm going to blow this up, and I'm going to talk very personally about my own last 10 years, and I hope it's an encouragement to you guys. So in the last 10 years of my life, we have had an 8-year-old son. We've got a 9-year-old son now, twin 8-year-olds. We have a 4-year-old daughter, and we have a 7-month-old daughter. 10 years ago, we had no children. In fact, 10 years ago, doctors told my wife and I that we were infertile and we would not be able to have kids. And here we are 10 years later with 5 beautiful children. It's such a blessing to us. In the last 10 years, in the real estate business, insurance business, I totaled up my income. It just blew my mind. I earned $1.7 million over the last 10 years. Now, people go, oh my gosh, that's so much money. But if you think about it, that's an average of $170,000 a year. Now, that is still a lot of money, yes. But I think what'll blow you away is even if you made $50,000 a year, you made $500,000 over the last 10 years. And when you look at your income potential over a 10-year span, it's very empowering because of that compounding nature of an income over years. And as it grows, it'll blow your mind. But it's also very convicting because you're like, what the heck did I do with it all? And that is a whole nother story about, managing and stewarding what we've been given. I look at my own life. I had an insurance business that I was stepping into 10 years ago, and it was worth about $500,000, and I grew that to about $3.5 million in annual revenue. And so I look back at that. Now, why I say that, it's not to toot my horn. When you look back at your own past and the things you've been able to accomplish, it gives you encouragement. It gives you inspiration that look what you've done. Look at all the things that you've accomplished if you focus on what you have accomplished. In my own life, my family, we paid off more than $350,000 of personal debt. We ended up putting $250,000 toward long-term savings. We traveled to Hawaii, the Caribbean, Lake Tahoe, San Fran, Disney, Boston, Chicago, Scotland, just to name a few. I looked at all the places I was able to go over the past 10 years. Start to look at that and cast a vision about where you want to go in the future. My wife and I, we built our dream home. I ended up running 2 half Ironman triathlons and more than 20 shorter distance triathlons. The last 10 years, I wrote a book. I was diagnosed with spreading malignant melanoma. I was able to speak more than 60 times in both the corporate and in the faith-based arenas. We ended up starting our faith and personal development organization called UPrint. And then we created the Life Center, our nonprofit entity that helps remove obstacles so people can uncover and live out their God-given purpose. That's Matt's last 10 years and just a snapshot of those 10 years. But I encourage you guys to go through that process as well because it's incredibly empowering when you look back on how faithful God has been in your past to bring you to where you are. Even with the difficult things. I look at my own life, the infertility. I look at the difficulties I had in leaving the insurance business. I look at my spreading malignant melanoma diagnosis. We lost loved ones over that time frame. When you look at all of the different things that have happened, it's very empowering. So the Decade Challenge, step 1 is writing down your last 10 years. Step 2 is what we call building your puzzle box. And this is something that is really a profound idea. When you start a puzzle, what's the first thing you do? Take the top off the box and you set the top up so you can look at it. You see, in our own lives, I think one of the misconceptions is we don't know what the puzzle box looks like. So we're busy every day trying to put a puzzle together, having never looked at the big picture. That's why dreaming is so important. That's why writing down your past is so important because it helps you clarify who you truly are, what you're truly about, and it gives you the courage to begin to step into that. So again, begin to cast your vision by building your puzzle box. And then the last point here in the Decade Challenge is we say that God's viewpoint is, and how he does this is not limited to your understanding. It never is. It's always going to be different than you expected it to be. So we say slow, gentle, and deep, not fast, harsh, and shallow, right? It takes a while for a vision to begin to manifest. Sometimes it'll happen immediately, but we prefer a process of slow and deep rather than fast and shallow. I think a lot of times we've fallen into the trap in our culture, microwave culture. Ooh, I want it now. Oh, I'm going through some difficulty, some pain. I want it gone right now. And we seek comfort and we seek resolution immediately instead of letting that process take place and let it actually transform us as we're being built into who we were created to be. So again, rolling through this very quickly, begin to unpack your Decade Challenge by looking at the last 10 years and then understand that process is not going to take place overnight. You have to visualize it, build your puzzle box, and begin to step into it one day at a time. And then the final piece is what we call the power of meditation. And I won't go into too much detail here, but I am going to tell you guys a cool story about how this transpired in my own life. So the power of meditation. This is once you have begun to started to have a vision, you're writing down your last 10 years, you're building your puzzle box, you're looking at it, you have to begin going there. You've got to begin going there and visualizing what it's actually going to be like. And I think I might have shared this story before. I'm almost positive I have. But when I was a 22-year-old kid, John and his group back then hired me to come on board as a sales assistant at a project down in Florida. And we went to a big celebration, a big kickoff, and Edwin McCain, musician, was actually playing music for the team that night. And the interesting piece is I was a huge Edwin McCain fan. And somebody that we worked with told Edwin McCain, hey, this kid's a big fan. And so there's 80 or 100 of us there, and Edwin McCain called me on stage. And so when I get on stage, I was in a moment where I had an opportunity to play the guitar with somebody that I truly admired, one of my favorite musicians. Now, the thing is I would have never been ready for that moment if I hadn't have visualized it already. Because for the last 10 years of my life, not quite 10 years, maybe 8 years of my life, I had learned how to play the guitar. I had practiced Edwin McCain songs. And I'd always had this crazy dream of like, oh man, what if I had that moment to get on stage and go do that thing? You see, that's where you have to be willing to do the steps of preparation along the way so that your vision can be realized. And like I said, this is a 4-hour seminar, and there's a whole process about, those steps along the way and marking out steps that you can take to get you to where you want to go. What are the small steps of faith? Back to the analogy, if you're going to California, you got to say, okay, first day we're going to end up in, Arkansas, and next day we're going to end up in, Missouri, or whatever. You have to understand and visualize these are the steps along the way. You don't just boom, pop, and end up in California. You've got to have a plan, a trajectory of taking those steps along the way. And so I think I want to land the plane here and just say this is today I challenge you guys to recalibrate your year by recasting a vision based on the information you have right now. We have new information about the year that we did not have in the beginning of the year. And a lot of folks can let that get them off track. They can give up. They can throw in the towel. But I think true excellence demands that you recalibrate your compass based off of the information that you have now and recast your vision, not only for your life, but for this year as well. And that will help you begin to step into it and build out the small steps that are taking you in that direction. So that being said, if anybody wants to walk through this more intimately one-to-one, feel free to reach out. We can do that. You guys have my cell, but it's 910-619-4644. Like I said, this is an entire workshop. We can go in much depth here, kind of a one-to-one dynamic. But today, I think the big thing is do not let this moment in time get you off track from who it is that you were created to be and the vision that you have for not only this year, but your life. Recalibrate and get re-energized and get ready to step back in. And those who prepare well, when that moment happens and you're on stage or you're with the client or whatnot, you will step up to the plate and you'll begin to live out your dream instead of going, oh no, I didn't prepare. Oh no, I wasn't ready. Oh no, I need this in order for that to happen. No, you're ready, you're prepared, and you step in excellently. You guys have a great week. As always, here if you need me. We'll see you.